This is Up Close, SABC News weekday program that profiles men and women making waves in their industries and gives newsmakers a human face where they can share their stories and vision as we hope to inspire you, our viewer. I'm Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay tuned for the next half hour as we talk to the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Mines, Mr. Bheki Sibiya. Chief Executive for the Chamber of Mines, South Africa, Bheki Sibiya's career profile is the envy of many young black South Africans with dreams of a long, successful corporate career. He completed his undergrad studies at the then University of Zululand and went on to further his studies in the US at the Western Michigan University. Armed with an MBA, he has since then headed various organizations and corporates such as the Wits Business School, Black Management Forum, Transnet, as well as being the founding Chief Executive Officer of the Business Unit of South Africa. But who really is Bheki Sibiya? Well, let's find out as we get up close with Mr. Sibiya. Thank you for making the time to chat to us.
It's my pleasure, Tshepang.
Mr. Sibiya, we think we know you. You're one of those profiles that it is such a pleasure to have you sitting in that chair. And we think we know you because we have followed your career for such a long time. But we want to know who really is Bheki Sibiya. Take us back, growing up in KZN in Durban.
Well, I was born in the slums of Durban and just about probably 10 kilos out of Mayville.
Okay.
And it was on my understanding Thursday morning at about 5:30.
Oh, okay.
And my mother, Mashandu, who is still alive, and my father, who is late, Absalom, were my parents.
Okay. Why do you say it was slums of Durban? Describe the...
It's the shack area.
Okay.
So it's still the shacks even now.
Mkumban.
Yes, Mkumban.
Okay. It's still a shack area now?
Yes.
Okay. What was that childhood like, Mr. Sibiya?
I spent only a few years in Durban because my father then decided to go to the rural area of Eshowe.
Okay.
But when we grew up like the kids do, and we're running around. And when people were selling the African beer, as they were selling the African beer, the ladies, and we used to see the policemen coming through and shout "Tin Melego," and they know that we are announcing that the police are around, and
yes,
the police chase us, and they want to do those kinds of things. But that was really fun.
That's what you remember then. So then did you move on to Eshowe?
Yes.
Tell us about growing up in a rural area after you've left the city.
Well, growing up in the rural area, my father was a business person.
Okay.
He was running the general dealer, having the taxis and the trucks, small trucks and tractors and buses. So he was just operating kind of anything which could make money in the rural area. And I grew up really under the guardianship of my grandfather, Zefania, who taught me how to graze the cattle, because I used to graze the cattle and then go to school, particularly grade A and B. It was start school at about 11 o'clock, so I would head the cattle and then thereafter go to school.
And that's very young. That's like age 7, 8 that you're already heading cattle.
But cattle, they don't really mind about age, because you have a stick and then you guide them home, you guide them to the pastures. But also we used to wake up early in the morning, especially spring and summer, use the oxen, 4 oxen, and then we do the plowing and all those kinds of things. So I grew really in the typical rural life, which was very enjoyable.
Rural life with a lot of responsibility, but it's interesting. So your father was already a businessman, active in the community. So we cannot say that it was such a, for lack of a better word, disadvantaged background. You know, you guys had means of getting things.
In a sense, I was a member of the privileged, even in the rural areas.
Yes.
But the rural areas were basic, because even electrification, it's only happening now that in the area where I come from, there is electrification. And I have the dubious honor in my house and in my vicinity that we drew electricity to about 5 or 6 households.
Oh, that's great. Take us to your school years. What do you remember? What's most memorable about your school years?
School years, when I did grade A1 or sub A and sub B, I had a friend, Nkosi Vilagazi, who is now late, and he was such a good friend of mine that we were looking forward to the tea break.
Okay.
So we didn't really study much. We didn't pay much attention. We were keen on playing. Consequently, I failed my grade 2, and I had to repeat it.
Because you're too busy playing.
Yes. We're in this classroom where there were 4 classes in one room. So it was grade 1, grade 2, standard 1, standard 2, as we had it, all in one room. And for me, the failure, when I had to repeat my sub B, as it were, it was so clear because some people were on another part of the room, same room, so I saw it every day. That's when, in my little mind, I thought, I don't want to fail again.
Wow, yes, that must have been had quite an impact on you.
Yes, it did.
And then what happened? Did your school career change after that? Did you decide to give it your all?
I focused. I ended up really being a bookworm. And for me, I was a bookworm, and I still am a bookworm, because I think if I look at the book, I know it has got to be read. And so I studied and completed my primary school in one of the school called Mombeni Primary School. And it was just an ordinary pass in terms of then, which was standard 6. Then I went to the high school. Bande High School, I did only 1 year there, and of course I got treated very badly by the elder boys who had been there before, beating us up, wanting us to do a lot of chores.
Were they particularly picking on you, or was it just the general thing that they did to the new kids?
I think generally to the new kids, but I have a big nose, and so people pick on something, and they were saying your nose is big, and I was saying, well, blame it on my parents, and they say they are not here, we are blaming it on you, and they would beat me up and those kinds of things.
For something like that?
Yes.
What did that do to you?
I think it just trained me that life is difficult, and therefore one needs to find ways of surviving even under those difficult circumstances, but also one negotiate one's way through. And in some instances, I was involved in a lot of fist fights, stick fights, and I was beaten, and I was bloody-nosed on many times, and I had to bleed myself out of those situations, but generally life goes on.
Mr. Sibiya, what is it about young boys? It's something I still don't understand. What is it about young boys that they need to challenge each other in such a way and, get physical? Like you said, you are still standard 6 and having the big boys beating you up till your nose bleeds. What is it about that?
It's a 3-letter word called ego.
Okay.
Our ego, we think it's small, or rather we're big, whereas it is so small. And we think by beating somebody else up, we're going to enlarge our ego. It's an ego thing.
Okay, let's hold it there, and we're going to continue getting up close with Mr. Sibiya. Comments, suggestions that you have for us, please share them. My Twitter handle is @Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay with SABC News. Welcome back to Up Close as we talk to an inspirational business leader, Bheki Sibiya. Bheki, you say you spent 1 year at that school, that's in standard 6. Why was that? What were the changes that happened after that?
I had a problem with my residence, and for some reasons I was ejected, and for the reasons which I still don't know up to today.
So it was a boarding school?
No, it was a private family home, which are associated though with my grandmother, and they just said, "You're too clever. You are not. You are a misfit here. Please move on." And so I had to find a different school.
No, wait a minute. What do you mean? You're too clever. You're a misfit.
I say I don't understand up to today.
Yeah.
If there is any explanation I would love to have had, was why I was ejected. But
so it was a family with kids who were going to the same school, and they just felt that you did not gel with their kids.
I didn't fit, yes.
Okay,
So,
and then where did you go?
I went to the Obambisana High School, which is now closer to Esho, where the town itself, and it's closer to the township. That's where I did my Form 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
And I did that with my the assistance of my elder brother, who passed on as well. So I studied there, and I completed matric with the 3 languages, which is English, Zulu, and Afrikaans. And we did maths, physical science, history, and geography. Yes.
You know, I'm just listening to your life until then. On the one hand, you had a lot of support and a relatively warm and good family life.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you had a couple of knocks by the time you had finished matric. You know, life had taught you a couple of things.
Certainly it had. It had taught me a lot of things on a social front. But my father as well was what I could probably informally call a Calvinist.
Okay.
We used to hate a holiday because when it's a school holiday, we used to work extremely hard. Some days actually worked for 24 hours continuously. When if it was today, they would have been accused of child abuse.
Yeah, yes.
But it taught us to really work hard. And therefore, for me, really, hard work does not come with any difficulty.
And the work involved helping him in his businesses, etc.
Yes. I learned how to drive probably when I was about 12 years old. By the time I got to 18 to get a driver's license, for me it was, let me demonstrate to you what I've been doing for years.
Yes.
And I was driving trucks, and I was driving tractors, driving buses and taxis, and all across.
So here you are, you finished matric, you've got a very strong work ethic. On the social front, you know, you've learned that life is not that easy. How do you move from there to going to university, ending up in your first job in Port Elizabeth?
Well, I applied actually to the University of the North.
Okay.
And at that stage, you had to apply to the government to allow you to apply to a school which is outside your ethnic group. And I did all that, and I got admitted to the University of the North, and I went to my father. I was excited. I've been admitted to the University of the North, and he says to me, okay, have you heard about Mpangeni? I say, yes. Have you heard about the university there? And I say, yes. He says, what's the name of the university? I call him University of Zululand. He says, what ethnic group are you? I say, I'm a Zulu. The rest is an unfortunate history. Because then I went to University of Zululand.
Why did you want to go to the North?
I understood at that stage that the world was bigger than it was KwaZulu-Natal, and therefore for me, I thought in the North I'm going to be exposed to a different culture, not a Zulu culture. Whether it's a Venda, Sotho, Northern Sotho culture, I wanted to be exposed to that culture. And my father said, sorry, no ways. If you want to pay for your schooling, you can do that. But if you want me to pay, you go to University of Zululand. And that was
and that was also something quite unique to have a parent during that time who could actually afford to take you to university. What was that experience like? Because you get to university and you're meeting with other people from different experiences. What was that like?
Well, I have said earlier I was a bookworm. And so a bookworm doesn't struggle with the university. You get to the lectures and you listen to some of the lectures. We had Professor L.J. Forey for the economist who was mumbling, and therefore I had to sit in the front to do lip reading and to understand him. But you get to the library, get lost in the library, and you write your assignments, and when they come positively, it becomes affirmation. And so for me, I didn't have really any social life.
So were you quite a loner?
Believe it, yes, I am. And I think really the issue of extrovert is an acquired habit. For me, I am a loner.
Wow.
And I'm very shy. And you cannot believe it because...
No, I do not, yes.
Yeah, but I had my girlfriend after completing university.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that next phase of your life. Your first job came and it was in Port Elizabeth. Why Port Elizabeth?
There were 2 people who came for the graduate recruitment to the University of Zululand, and they interviewed me, and I was keen to be interviewed. It was the very first and the only job I got. And I was clear in my mind, I need a job, and therefore any job I get anywhere in the world, I will do. that was the only job I got. So when I got the telegram at that stage saying, you have a job, start working on the 5th of January, year 1980, it was accepted, I shall be there. And it was absolutely exciting.
Your first time actually leaving the province, and now you're in a different province.
Yes.
The main ethnic group is Xhosas.
Yes.
You're earning about, what, 490 a month. What was that experience like, working for the first time, etc.?
Well, it was exciting. Exciting because I could now understand the business world more. Again, being a loner as I was, I think really the first 6 to 8 months, I practically didn't have weekends. During the weekends, I used to go to the offices and go to the vault and go and look at the files. And I was just absorbing as much information as possible. And we had what we call dead files, the files of the people who had left the company.
Yes.
I plowed from A to Z, kind of reading through the file, anything and everything that I could get. And I ended up, my first expertise was leave administration. For Ford, which was employing about 6,000 permanent people and about 6,000 temp people at that stage, I ended up being the authority company-wide on leave administration. And you may think it is easy, but at that stage it was largely manual. And for me, that was the first thing I had as expertise. And so anybody throughout the company, which was large.
Okay, we're going to go to an ad break, but I still want to understand at which point this leader that we know came out. We're going to hold it there, and then we're going to continue talking to Mr. Bheki Sibiya. Comments, suggestions that you have for us, please share. My Twitter handle at Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay with SABC News. Thank you for staying with us as we wrap up our conversation with Chief Executive of Chamber of Mines, Mr. Bheki Sibiya. It's very interesting that until this point in your life, you know, this personality that we have come to, maybe perhaps it's our perception, but that we think you are, you know, this leader who is very confident, who's very out there, hadn't come out at that stage. You were still, you know, withdrawn, enjoyed your books, not very social. So at what point did this personality come out?
Well, I had the honor of going to the States as a fellowship recipient to study for the MBA, and it was roughly a 2-year program. On return from there, having been exposed to how free people live, because the first time really I got exposed to how free people live was in America, and it was year 1982, 83.
Yeah, that's very early.
And then the first national anthem I really had was the American national anthem, the American flag, because that's where I had freedom. Come back, George Negota and other leaders had formed the Black Management Forum. They visited Port Elizabeth. So the first leadership position I had was BMF.
Yeah.
That's why BMF is so near and dear to me, because that's only when I made the forays into leadership, and I thought, well, I could have a vision, I could implement, and it could potentially be successful. And so I am really a product of BMF.
Let's go back to life in the US, because clearly that's where it happened, when it finally sparks. What was it about you? Was it an acceptance of this a bright young man into a social group? What was it? What was it that made you come out?
Probably it was that, but also I was accepted strangely. My biggest friends were Muslims. We started debating religious matters and ended up having friendships. And lo and behold, I ended up having a Muslim girlfriend, and I almost embraced Islam. And I got married to an Islamic lady. We have a son who is 29, and we have a granddaughter now because he is married. He lives in Malaysia. But that exposed me before I came back and engaged in the BMF and other corporate issues.
Who is Bheki Sibiya outside of work? We've just spent the entire program talking about how you got here. Now we want to know, now that you're here, you're the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Mines, you've held various positions. We know you publicly, but who are you in private now?
Privately, I am a shy son of Mashandu.
I do not believe it. I do not believe that you're still the same boy who just hides behind a book.
I'm a son of my mother. I'm my mother's son. My father had joyride, but my mother shaded me.
Yes.
And of course, I'm married to Tembisa. And so, in a sense, I have my mother, my wife, and of course, my daughter. I have one daughter, Inga. So those are the women who rule my life. Other than that, of course, I have a PA. Those are the 4 women who rule my life. I'm a Christian. I'm a member of the Methodist Church in Bethesda here in Hillbrow, and I go to church as often as I can. I have a retirement home in East London, and so between Eshowe, where there is my mother, East London, where there is my wife who is farming, and Johannesburg, I find time to potentially go to church, to the Methodist Church.
And what do you do for fun now? Don't talk about reading.
Well, I enjoy traveling.
Okay.
Traveling probably in terms of far and near destinations. For instance, Mpumalanga, I love Mpumalanga. And it is one of the most lovely provinces. Western Cape is great, Eastern Cape is great, KwaZulu-Natal is great, and the other provinces, one has their own preferences, so I do a bit of traveling. But I also do the walking. And lo and behold, 2 years ago, my 2 nieces and I, nephews rather, sorry, we walked from here to Eshowe.
From Johannesburg?
Yes, it took us 12 days.
Wow.
And the reason we did that, because my grandfather, who brought me up, used to tell me about stories about how he walked from Eshowe to the Johannesburg and then be taken to the mines, and when he needs to go back, again, he did that. And I just thought, it looks like it's impossible, let me try it. And we tried it, and it was such fun.
Fun. Okay, I'll take you up on that one.
You can join us. We're looking at doing that in December, somewhere around December the 16th. But then walk to Durban.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
Mr. Sibiya, you know, it was interesting. I got a profile of you from the mining magazine, and one of the things that they said about you quickly was that your favorite food is seafood, and I was like, Zulu, seafood, is that for real?
Yes, it is for real. I enjoy seafood. I think the first meal I ate, actually, it was a turtle soup, and as I was enjoying the turtle soup, I found something which was chewy, and I thought it must be cartilage of one form or another. There has been no food which has been presented to me, whether it's seafood or land food or air food, which I have not eaten. I am a true example of a homo, what is it? Yes. Yes.
I think in my final question, I've been trying to find what is it about you that has made you into the leader that you are. Perhaps now I should give you that opportunity to share with, other young Africans out there who are looking at you and they want to know what does it take to get to your position.
Probably let me just cover. I'm not so sure how much time we have.
We have about 30 seconds.
At some stage, actually, I was suicidal. I was probably less than 10 seconds from suicide, and I stopped. And I had to reflect and look at life and the value of life. And for me, I looked at it and said, actually, life is good. Life is positive. I can contribute to life. But also, I had great people around me, whether it was Patrick Chiula from Port Elizabeth, or whether it was O.J. Owens, who actually gave me the first job, or was Anthony Hill, who was my mentor, Anthony Ball, who was my mentor, or Tshepang Motsekuoa, who introduced me to deep spiritual matters. Those are some of the people who really were around me, who enabled me to look at life better.
So then you will say it's mentorship and it's your spirituality. Mr. Sibiya, we have to leave it there. Unfortunately, I think I want to do this again. There's a
Even
lot more
off
that we
air.
need to talk about. No,
Thank you very
certainly,
much.
certainly. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of Up Close. Catch us same time weekdays on SABC News, DSTV, Channel 404. Catch some of our favorite episodes. We'll try and get this one in there as soon as possible. That's on youtube.com/SABC News. And me, my Twitter handle at Tshepang Motsekuoa. Till next time, bye-bye.
We warmly welcome these offers, but this created a problem for us and that how we were going to deal with it. We have brought in our lawyers to help us decide how to best use these offers of support to help us find Madeleine. Since the lawyers have come here, we have visibly felt a burden being lifted from our shoulders, because there's one less thing that we do not have to